Hello Indie Game fan, May was a ridiculously stacked month of releases with multiple Game of the Year contenders, so the best games begin with Rabbit and Steel, a co-op action roguelite that wants to replicate the feeling of a high-level MMO raid with each player playing their role and has absolutely delivered on that promise. Our bunny girl heroines are taking on various bosses, complete with MMO-style attack cones and danger zones that you need to avoid, on top of the spam of bullet hell projectiles using the complementary skills of the tank, wizard, assassin and archer equivalent classes to defeat your foe. How they handle multiplayer is one of the most interesting parts, since it is not just increased boss HP, but rather allows the mechanics between the different characters to thrive, but is fully playable solo and is good, with the amazing community support of this title being of note, since my comments and Twitter replies were full of fans of the games when I showed it off. The Best Indie Games Summer Showcase returns next week, Tuesday, June 4th, 8 AM Pacific, right here on this channel. Be there or be square. A game that was pretty much a lock for this list from the get-go was Little Kitty Big City, since it was shown off during a Nintendo Direct, and its trailer on YouTube has something like 12 million views, so marketing and awareness was not an issue for this game. It's a wholesome exploration adventure game where you play as a little cat which got lost in the big city and now has to find a way home, getting up to all sorts of mischief along the way. It plays and controls like a cat platformer, think Stray, but less grimdark of course, and while not too crazy innovative or challenging, it is a very pleasant and well-made experience through and through. A very stylish and all-action first-person shooter is MULLET MADJACK, an amazing title with the gimmick being that you need to kill enemies to add to your timer to extend your own life, otherwise you will die. It is inspired by classic anime, with the protagonist having vibes similar to 1980s action movie heroes, having a variety of weapons and upgrades to pick as you advance from one floor to the next, killing AI billionaires in order to rescue the damsel in distress. I love the look of this game, with the timer element really pushing the action, with it having a roguelite-ish structure similar to Post-Void, but with the action and gunplay feeling similar to the classics. I'm not really a big horror game person, but I still have to give Crow Country its dues, since this survival horror title really nailed the PS1 era visual style as well as the creepy monsters and enemy designs, in which you play as a woman searching for the owner of the theme park Crow Country who went missing 2 years ago. There are, of course, monsters to battle and outwit, as well as puzzles and key items to find, along with a central mystery that keeps you going. It is relatively short, clocking in at about 6 to 8 hours, but if you're a fan of classic Resident Evil, this will definitely be of interest.
I'm here to investigate a case.
Moving perhaps onto the polar opposite end of things is Duck Detective: The Secret Salami, a detective puzzle adventure game that is filled with puns and cute characters, in which you play as the titular Duck Detective, using the power of deduction to solve the case. This is similar in nature to games like The Case of the Golden Idol and Return of the Obra Dinn, in which you are speaking to characters and gathering clue words, which you then slot into your notebook, Mad Libs style, to come to a deduction of what is happening in the case. The art style is awesome and very cute, but do note that it's only one case and perhaps is over just as it starts to get good, being referenced to as Baby's first Obra Dinn, but I don't think that that's a slight on the quality of the game, but rather a reflection of people wanting more since it is awesome. A game which crushed it right out of the gate is 9 Souls, which, full disclosure, I haven't had that much time to sit down with just yet, since it only released 3 days ago, but from what I played, it's an excellent 2D Souls-like title, at least in the initial portion, and I do need to play more. Its closest comparison would be 2D Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, with a focus on the parry system and thus encourage aggressive play, with the difficulty of the game tuned on the more difficult end of things, especially if you just try to bum rush the enemy without thinking, and you will more or less be instantly obliterated. It looks gorgeous, and some people are already drawing comparisons to Hollow Knight, so if you love Metroidvanias or 2D Souls-like titles, definitely check this out.
So, ready for your first day?
I want to commend and congratulate the developers of Abiotic Factor, since a lot of people had the impression that when you've seen one survival game, you've seen them all, but then comes along a game like this, which is essentially Half-Life 1 but as a survival game in which you are not Gordon Freeman, but just a regular human. You are stuck in an underground research facility where a paranormal containment has failed and there are monsters lurking about, and you're also caught in the crossfire when military types enter the fray with the objective of killing everything in sight. The location is the most interesting part, since you are, for example, not punching trees to get wood, but rather have to gather wooden items to recycle, which then leads to all sorts of implications down the line when it comes to crafting, exploration, and combat. Also of note is the art style, which again does resemble Half-Life 1 and goes to show that the endless pursuit of visual fidelity in AAA games is a fool's errand, since this game has been a massive success. Super promising in early access so far, and it only looks to be getting better with time, but for the full survival game experience, I would recommend jumping in with a couple of friends if you can, and to experience the thrill whenever a new update drops. You know things are crazy when the 1.0 release of Songs of Conquest is number 3 on a list like this, since I am a noted Heroes of Might and Magic fan and lament that the IP is with Ubisoft, who is not doing anything with it. So luckily, we have indie developers that are fans as well and have put their own spin on things. If you're not familiar, I don't blame you, since HOMM 3 released in 1999, so the quick version is that this is a turn-based strategy title with 3 main components. Your hero avatar or wielder explores the world map, picking up resources, artifacts, capturing resource-producing locations, and engaging with enemies, both of the neutral enemy spawns or wielders of the enemy faction. This then switches to turn-based combat on a hexagonal grid, where you then command units and cast spells. The resources gathered are used to recruit troops and to expand your home base or castle, and back and forth you go until you complete the objective or are defeated, with this game being an excellent tribute with new twists of its own. The good news is that this has sold 500,000 copies, and they have announced a new expansion in the works with 2 new factions, as well as 4 DLCs and new story campaigns, so there's plenty more content to come. Oh boy, when YouTuber Video Game Donkey announced that he was starting an indie games publishing label that will only publish good games, people were of course skeptical, but they are one for one with Animal Well. The most interesting part is that this is an exploration Metroidvania title that shies away from the combat focus of many other games in the genre, instead turning their attention to platforming and secrets, and have absolutely nailed what it went for. This is primarily the work of solo developer Billy Basso, who tends to get lost in conversations, who has been working on this game for a very long time, and it shows, since while it is simple looking, it is very densely packed with stuff. The Metroidvania style key items that you can get can be used in very clever ways, where if exploration and discovery is the number one thing in games for you like me, I'm sure that you will thoroughly enjoy your time with this game.
Death to Kronos.
And of course, was there ever any doubt? The sequel to my favourite action roguelite did a surprise release and dropped out of nowhere, but hey, they can do that since they are Supergiant, and this is one of the most highly anticipated titles having an astounding 37,000 Steam reviews in about 3 weeks, which I'm guessing easily equates to 3 million plus copies sold, and that is just early access. It is a little bit of a misnomer, however, since there is a substantial amount of content in this game, to the extent of having more environments, enemies, and characters as compared to the 1.0 launch of the original Hades, and I have yet to hit the so-called early access wall of content where the game cuts off. The protagonist, Melanoi, plays very differently as compared to her brother Zagreus, and while there are returning elements like the gods of Olympus that you can call upon, there are so many interesting new changes that makes this feel different. One major change is the removal of a timer counting down to the next early access update, with it instead just having a vague late 2024 release window, but the team has earned my trust by now, and I can easily see this being Game of the Year 2025. Watch this video for the best games of 2023.